Good afternoon, everyone. So quick show of hands, how many of you here have been familiar with the topic of observability? Wonderful. OK, so this is going to make my life very easy. So if you see, yeah, this is what we are looking at observability in the context of taking a black box and actually understanding it. So that makes it what we call as glass box. OK, so yeah, what is observability, right? I'll start with the native cloud observability, and then we will see how does it apply to agent observability. Okay? So pretty much observability is about understanding the system, the internals of the system, by looking at some of the external logs, metrics, and things that you capture, basically external signals. And the idea is you want to either do it because you want to understand the health of the system, or you want to understand what went wrong. And observability started picking up largely when workloads went on to cloud, because these are very complex systems. You would have your system, your DB running somewhere, your application server running somewhere, lots of microservices. How do you detect what's going wrong where, right? And the three pillars, if you've heard, of observability would be logs, which will say why something went wrong. I mean, it would give you very internal signals. Metrics, which would give you a kind of trend. It would say, OK, maybe the number of users could be one of the metrics, which would say every day at 9 a.m. it goes very high, or something like that, right? So that's about metrics. And then you have traces. Traces will take you through the entire flow for a single user, for multiple users. You can actually see what's the path, what are the different services, systems getting called, and where things are going wrong. Okay? So these are the traditional cloud observability pillars, as we would say: traces, logs, metrics. And this is one of the ways of how observability is actually manifested. You would usually want to collect the data from all your systems, microservices, virtual machines, all those various infrastructure, and so on. Then you would want to store them, because these are going to be fairly large, and they would have to be collected at real time. And then you would have to give some kind of analysis over it. And there are various dashboards. If you see this, one of the dashboards shows about different metrics. So it would say, OK, there are various metrics that are collected. The typical ones would be called golden signals, which will say if things are going wrong, if there's an availability issue, if there's a utilization issue, you would be able to capture it. And then you have things like, for example, here you can make out that some of the requests, this shows the trace flow. Right, some of the metrics going to a particular log stash system, if you see I have some failure. And then you could actually drill down further, look at the traces, and then see where exactly what's going wrong. Yeah, that's a broad idea. So whenever things go wrong, I mean, there are lots of nice papers which talk about how one Slack had an issue, and how did it manage all the observability by looking at these various signals. So now we will move to, OK, before I look at observability in the context of agent, let me just talk about what is an AI agent. And how many of you are familiar with agentic systems? Just, again, great. Makes my life very easy. So if you see, yeah, agent is, and to be honest, AI agent as a concept is not new. It has been there for a very long time. The only difference is LLM-based AI agents are something that started only a couple of years back. But in general, agents have been there for a fairly long time. And what are they? They are a system or a program that is capable of performing tasks on behalf of a user or a system. And the whole idea here is it can take actions in the world, it can observe what's happening in the world, and it can change its behavior based on observation. So these are the three basic characteristics. If anything does these three things, we call it an agent. The only difference is whether it's a LLM-based agent or it's a traditional reinforcemental RL-based agent. There are various categories of agents. Okay? Now, if you look at LLM-based agents, there has been a transitioning, right? 3-4 years back, all LLMs could do is generate text. Right? And that's what they were doing. They were pretty good. When ChatGPT came out, that's what it did. It wrote poems, and we were quite happy with the fact that it could understand the language and generate good language, right? Then came the idea of why don't we use it for specific tasks where we can chat with the user, largely used in assistants. For example, patterns like RAG came in, where the LLM could understand some context of the user by looking at some documents and answering questions, right? So it was, and then we also had assistants which could take small actions. So I could say maybe, get my leaves. Maybe it would do that if it knew what to call and so on. And now we are coming into agents which don't just retrieve information, generate text, but they are also able to reason, plan, take multiple actions in a sequence. Okay, that's the, I would say, more or less the trajectory that LLM-based agents have taken. They've started from just generating text to now reasoning, taking multi-step actions. So this is one example. This is still not multi-step, but this would pass off as an agent. So here, I'm a user. I'm going to ask the system to say, OK, I want to know all the issues in GitHub. Very simple. So what does the LLM do? It figures out there's this user who's supposed to be asking for listing their issues. And typically, in black box scenario, you will get your answers out. Right? That's what happens. And you don't know but what's happening at the, in the real backend. Actually, a lot of steps happen, right? If you see, this is a typical flow. So when you ask a question to the user, that's what is a user query. Then there is some set of instructions given to the LLM saying, whenever a user asks query, figure out what to do, whether you have that information or you have to call a particular tool. All that reasoning happens in the reasoning and planning. Then it probably says, OK, GitHub, list issues. I don't have this knowledge. I have to go and call a tool. So that's why it's calling the tool. So and you might have multiple tools. It might have tools to list issues, to create a PR, to get the list of issues, lots of things, right? All the GitHub functionality. So then it figures out that I need to call a function which has this name, which takes these parameters. So that's first thing it will do. Second thing is, based on the user utterance, it's going to actually formulate that whole payload, right? And then make a call. Now, this call doesn't happen by an LLM, because LLM can't do anything other than generating text. So LLM will just formulate that whole payload, saying this is a function, this is the arguments. Now, there will be an external framework like LangChain and all. They go execute. So tool execution and response happens outside. And then it gets the output. That is where it observes and reflects. And then it will decide, OK, is this all that user asked? Do I have enough information? If it has, then it would give the final output. Otherwise, maybe it has to take another step. It will go back. Right? So if you see, it's a fairly complex set of steps that have to happen. And all we see is an output. And various other things can go wrong in here. Either the tool calling can fail, the tool selection can fail, it might go and just say that it might think that it knows and it can answer this question. So planning itself can go wrong. So this is where agent observability becomes very important, because one is there are a lot of steps and reasoning involved. And we've usually seen, and this is probably you would have realized if you've worked with agents, they're fairly probabilistic. One time it works well, another 4 times it doesn't work, and then suddenly another time it will work, and you don't know. Small changes in user utterance can have this problem. So that's why it's an important thing that we need to address and detect and observe, right? And this happens if you see in long-running tasks. Maybe single task agents are doing still well, but long-running tasks, they have problems. Tool failures are innumerable, simply because there could be various issues either with the tool or the agent. That particular model that you're using may not be very good at tool calling. Again, lots of issues. And context window. This is where we also call these silent errors, right? In a long context, the user would have said, OK, do something. In the long context, the agent forgets and still ends up not following user instructions. So for all these things, if we have the entire trace, you collect lots of traces, and you will be able to figure out where exactly things are going wrong, right? After maybe 5th step, you see a divergence. And then you can say, OK, this is where the agent is struggling. So this is, and again, we are looking at the same context in observability. Again, it would do collect, store, and analyze. But here you would have different set of metrics, and you would have to capture the traces, which would be the full execution of the agents. So if you see the metrics could be lots of, these are very common things, number of tokens, cost, tool calls, latency, lots of other things that you can collect to figure out which are the tools that are going wrong and so on. As well as you can look at execution paths largely to say how many steps did a particular agent take for this user query. If it's going to take 50 steps, then something is wrong, right? It's doing something wrong. So what I'll do is I will give a small demo that would give you an idea about how we could typically look at observability tools and look at these metrics, traces, and figure out issues. Yeah, and this is still in the development time, because what I will show you is, as a builder persona, I'm building my agent, and then I go and look at traces and figure out what's going wrong. But this, pretty much the same concept can be used in production. Pretty much, but it would have shown you how a user can create an agent, and I'll just say it aloud. And maybe I'll go back to the previous slide. Yeah, so here is what it would have done. You can actually, I had an agent which had some 4 or 5 tools, and this would be a single step, yeah. So it's going to say it invokes an agent based on a user query, which is as simple as get me all high priority incidents, right? So now, first thing that it has to do, if I just say, get me all high priority incidents in ServiceNow, first thing that it needs to do is figure out what does high mean, right? So then it would go and first call maybe get priorities, okay? And get priorities will give you a list of priorities saying high means maybe 2, and 3 means low, whatever it is. So it figures out this. Then it finds out that it needs to get incidents. That's another tool. And then it would try to create the payload. In fact, if I could do that, in the input, it would actually say priority equal to 2. Right? Because it has to map the input. And then it would give you the entire trace. And so here you would see, OK, there's an invoke agent which is calling this tool, and it would call multiple other tools. This is one scenario where an error has occurred in the get priorities. You could also look at metrics saying, I mean, this was one scenario. If you go to a timeline view, you would actually see in my sequence, which is the most time-consuming operation. So for example, this particular flow of just as simple as get all high priority incidents was taking 1 minute, 53 seconds. That is unacceptable, right? And the only reason was somewhere in this get priorities tool was having all the problem. It was taking some 60 seconds out of the whole flow. So these are things that you can actually observe. You can also observe how many steps. So sometimes it would take maybe 15 steps. Sometimes it would take 37 steps. So again, you know that it's not able to formulate the exact payload. So yeah, I'm just sorry I couldn't get the demo working. But you could actually use some of these observability tools to figure out where your problems are. And I specialize mostly in tool calling failures. And I've seen over the time that most of the times you have to figure out why a tool call is failing. Okay? The tool call can be failing simply because the model is not ready for it. Sometimes it's model-related issues, right? Sometimes it's tool-related issues. So sometimes model is unable to understand when there are very similar descriptions which one to pick up. It cannot form that payload, right? Or it cannot understand the output. On the other hand, tools can be a real difficult thing because they are something external people build. So if the description is not clear, the model agent can't do much. Similarly, if the tool failures are not clear, sometimes tools will fail saying bad request. What does the agent do, right? So those are some of the issues. And sometimes it can be just both of them together. Right. So that's pretty much what I had on covering on observability. So the whole idea is agents are not just simple prompts, they're systems. So they are fairly complex systems, and you will have to figure out where things are going wrong. Second thing is, yeah, you just need it for improved trust. You know exactly whether the agent is doing the right things or not, so that's important. And as we said, there are 3 pillars, just like cloud observability: logs, metrics, and traces. And finally, the advantage of observability is also when you scale up, you really need to know where things are going wrong. So all these metrics help you figure out where things are going wrong. Yeah, that's all I had. Thanks a lot.